What's up, boys? Welcome back to another video. Today I'm gonna teach you guys a nice, easy TvT build that you can beat anyone with without needing a lot of APM or a lot of scouting or stuff like that. To give you guys a little bit of context, because this replay is actually perfect. This game here was the Team League winning game. I beat Sol to win the Team League for Team Liquid in the SC2 Royal Team League. And basically I had to play Sol twice. And I got owned the first game, and I could tell that it was a real off day, you know, like I was not playing well. And then the second game, I was like, I'm gonna play the lowest skill build I know that's still gonna work, and that ended up being this. So considering the context, it's perfect. Now we're gonna start very simple. Barracks first at 16, and then the gas. As always, guys, I'll try to put the replay in the description, so if you wanna follow it again, download it from there. Then we are gonna SCV scout. So usually you can send it at like 16.5, or you can rally the 17th or the 16th SCV if you want to be extra safe. But right now this is going to be fine. It is going to be a Reaper expand build. So this SCV is pretty simple. All you really want to do is just check if your opponent's also doing a Reaper expand or not. And you might also run into a proxy, things like that. Now, I'm not going to go in too much detail now what to do against proxy, but I do have a really complete guide against proxy Reaper, so you can check that out if you want. So we're just going to go Reaper. Basically, we're going to check here for, yeah, if there's a C or not. Like, if you see the SCV here, it's pretty obvious that there's going to be a command center, right? Both going to put it down. Actually doing the exact same build over here as we speak. Now, up until this point, there's no variation in what you do if you scout double gas or a Reaper expand, because instead of this CC, they could also have a second gassing on for a factory, but everything looks exactly the same. The only time something would look different is if they're actually proxying. Then you would like start making bunkers, factory, stuff like that. But once again, I do have a very in-depth guide on how to defend proxy Reaper, so check that out if you want to learn more about that. Then now you basically have two options. You can either send the SCV back home, or send the Reaper across and fight Reaper SCV at their base. You don't really have to do this if you don't want to. It's mostly just a poking move, like usually you're not expecting to end the game. So after Reaper we go for the Marine and the Factory. Now, small adaptation here is if you scouted a double gas opener, so if they didn't have a command center, this SCV that finished the depot would go to make the bunker here at around 215. And this is to defend against like 2 Reaper, 1 Hellion attacks, right? And in this case, since it was a Reaper expand, you don't need a bunker at all. You can make it later if you want to be completely safe. I might do that this game too, because like I said, I was really intending on playing pretty low skill here. So after you start the factory, you make the second gas. If you do make the bunker, this gas is after the bunker. So depot, bunker, gas. If you play against double gas. Now this is the poke I was talking about, guys. And this is pretty much literally just a poke. You don't want to do too much with this. You can win the game on accident even. In this case, I'm just going to kill a Marine, trade it for an SCV and back off. And that's going to be pretty much it. And then we can start focusing a bit more on what's going at home. So basically what this build is meant to do is to keep you safe without scouting a lot. So we're not going to make a lot of units that go out on the map. We're going to open, like, instead of like Raven Cyclone, the standard, or even Banshee, we're just going to open with like tank Viking. Can make a Hellion first, like you don't need a tank that fast. In the most extreme case, what you can do from a Reaper expand is make reactored Hellions to put an early pressure on. But even in that case, you don't need to make a tank hyper fast to defend it. So you can make a Hellion first. Hellion does help with a bit of scouting. Now I did mention that you don't need to scout a lot. But I do feel like it's nice to have the option. Like this game, I'm actually not really going to scout a lot at all. But you know, you can make the Hellion, so why not? So we go for the Hellion into the tech lab. Reactor is going to be producing Marines non-stop. Mules, SCVs. Like at this point it's just macroing, you know, there's nothing crazy to do here. And then we're gonna start up the Viking and the Siege Tank. Siege Tank has a small priority, so if you do you know, lack the resource to build both instantly, make the tank first. And basically why you do this is In TvT there's a lot of builds that are like, just to name a few examples, Marauder drop at the front with 6 Hellions, or if they go 2 gas, they could go for a tank drop with 2 Reapers and 2 Hellions, like any kind of aggression. And Terrans usually open up with Cyclone Raven. And why Terrans open up with Cyclone Raven is because Ravens are going to be good for the rest of the game. Like, they build energy over time and their spells become useful. And Cyclone is really good at controlling the map, but it is a little bit less safe. So if you go Tank Viking, you're virtually safe against everything. Like, the tank is out before anything really hits. If you want to be extra safe, you can make a bunker later too. If you played against double gas, of course, like I said, you would already have the bunker with the Tank Viking. Viking is always going to go into the little airspace in the main. I don't think there's a map where it wouldn't cover the main. To name some examples, if you play Oxide, the Viking would be in the corner of the main. If you play on Submarine, the Viking would be in the main. Like, it's pretty much always just in the main. And then after making the Tank Viking, you're going to swap over the add-ons. Make a third CC. So you lifted a starport on the Tech Lab add-on of the factory to make a Raven. And then after the third command center, we're going to go for double gas here. So this is a pretty fast third base. Usually people do it like this. They get their third gas first. But since our Raven is late, as you can see, we actually do still have a decent gas count. Like, if my opponent did not make a third gas, you can see he would not be able to afford his Raven plus tank combo, right? Because Raven plus tank combo is like 325 gas, roughly. Even now he can't really afford it, so he needs it. But since I open with a Viking, I'm actually going to save a little bit of gas, which means I can delay my third gas, get my third base faster, and then get the third and fourth gas after that. And then I'm going to go into mech, because like I said, you know, low APM. I wouldn't say low skill. Like, mech is pretty strategic, but you do definitely need a bit less speed. And what's nice about mech in TvT is that you're not really forced to move out as much. Like, with Bio, you have to put a lot of pressure. But with mech, it's totally fine to just sit back, make siege tanks, make the big army, and then go. Like, this is really... If like I said, if I have a day where I'm just not playing that great, or... I don't know, if I'm playing a really good opponent, this is a really good playstyle to do. Because it's going to be quite consistent, since you don't need, like, a lot of speed. It's mostly just, like, knowing when to build your stuff, which you really don't need to be on a good day for, of course. So those are things that make for a nice build. So, you guys know that I normally like to get 3 Ravens. With this build, we're going to get Viking, and then 2 Ravens. Non-stop Marine tank production as well. At some point, you're going to cut out the Marines. But this kind of adds to the safety. Like, you can cut out Marines to make a faster third CC, for example. But making Marines, even if you play mech, it actually makes you a lot safer. Because what's underestimated is when people do, like, Marine Tank Raven pushes. So you basically have Marine Tank Raven against Marine Tank Raven. Marines actually do add in a lot of DPS against, like, the auto turrets. They take tank shots and stuff. So if you skip Marines, some people would think your army is equally strong because it's all about the tanks and Ravens, but the Marines actually end a lot. So I'm just producing Marines here to be completely safe. If you want to be greedy, you can skip a lot of those and get a faster third CC, faster eBay for turrets, stuff like that. But I think it helps a lot with safety. Now, this is an important aspect. In TvT in general, by the way, this is like a super general TvT tip that you always have to do, is that you always have to spread out your Marines. Because you just need to see attacks coming. In TvT, there's a lot of gambles you can do and risks. Like, you can send a random drop here, or a Liberator. And just seeing it makes it so much easier. Like, you can siege a tank in anticipation. You can have your Ravens ready to use Interference Matrix and stuff. And in this case, I'm not really looking for a drop. I'm mostly trying to protect myself from a push. Later on, drops are more scary, but now I just don't want to be surprised by an early push. Like, his third Raven is about to finish. He's going to have 3 tanks. I really don't want him to just, like, walk all the way up until my third and surprise me here. Because if they get a siege position here, you know, it's not the end of the world, but you're not going to be able to mine from the gas and blah, blah, blah. So at this point, before I take my third, I always make sure to scatter out some Marines. It doesn't have to be super accurate. Just try to, like, roughly cover the path they can go. Like, this Marine here, already on this map, does a lot of work. Because if there's no push here, there's only one other place a push could be already. So even like one marine, like if, I don't know, let's say you don't have the speed to send out all these marines or whatever, just try to cover the main paths with them. And then when we go back to the builder, like I said, we go for Viking, Raven, Raven. And then we switch over the starport to this reactor. And then we make 2 factories after that with a reactor on the barracks. So we're going to end up with 1 starport on the reactor, 2 factories on tech labs, and 1 factory is going to take over this reactor. Also, make sure to take your 5th and 6th gas really fast. Like, mech is super gas intensive. You can see I'm already low on gas. And I still need to make my armories in a bit as well. So when you land your 3rd, by the way, if you have perfect SCV production, you should already have enough to like take a few SCVs from your natural without disturbing the mining 16 per mineral line. And you already want to have like these gases building by the time it lands, because you just need to get that gas really fast. You see, I still have enough money. This build flows pretty well in general, to be honest. And then when it comes to the unit positioning, basically I siege and have most of my units at the 3rd base, but I always keep 1 tank here. In the natural, it's pretty much the same on every map, just because of things like maybe a drop coming in here. 1 tank is going to make a massive difference because it's going to keep shelling away all the time. Or even dropping like auto turrets here with a Raven, stuff like that's really annoying if you have to react to it. So I will always leave a siege tank here. And then the rest of my units is going to be at the 3rd. And then the Air Force is going to cover the main. And this is actually, even though it doesn't look that scary, this is big enough of a force to stop most things, because people wouldn't really like boost in here with medevacs. There's 3 auto turrets in here, 2 disables, 2 more Vikings on the way. So this is a really good split of the units to have. So like I said, we have our 3 factories set up. Then I didn't mention the eBay timing, but the eBay actually goes down pretty fast. Even before you land your 3rd, you want to have the eBay. Mech in general is going to have a lot of minerals, because you're not making a lot of marines, right? So you make this, I would say roughly at like 5 minutes-ish, you'll make this eBay. Just to start making turrets like here, defend from drops and stuff. And after that, you're going to go into the armories after your factories are finished pretty much. And if you look at my POV here, you can see I'm pretty much safe from everything. I have a marine patrolling here. It would see any drop coming. I have units here in the bush, here at the front, here on the side. So there's no push that could actually hit me without seeing it. If he would somehow boost past this marine and I wouldn't see it, I have the defense ready. And besides that, I just siege all my tanks here. Now, unit position gets a bit different later on, and I'm going to keep explaining that as we go. Because at some point you actually want to keep a bunch of your tanks unsieged. And I'm going to explain that in a bit. So here, just make sure to have like production rolling all the time. You want to have your tanks building especially. This is the highest priority. And then when you can actually afford it, I just executed my own SCV because it was stuck. And then when you can actually afford it, after making tanks all the time, you can produce your armories. Mech upgrades actually matter a lot, because mech is like a super high impact at the start of the fight. So if your tanks have +1, the start of the fight will actually be more overwhelming when you're playing as the bio player especially. I also have to add, guys, I mentioned the Proxy Reaper guide first. I do also have really in-depth mech against bio guides and mech against mech guides. So if you really want to learn about those matchups in specific, make sure to check those videos out. This guide is more about like this build order. The helmet build, as I like to call it, super safe, early game, tank Viking into mech, no problem. Gonna get those upgrades rolling as soon as you can afford it. Sensor towers, really important for TvT. You always want to put it like this, where it like covers the edge barely into the main. Sometimes I see people build it like a little bit higher, so you can see here. But then you run a pretty big risk of having like drops being able to sneak under the sensor tower. So always make sure to have like the edge of the map barely covered with that sensor tower. One thing you do have to pay attention to with mech is that with bio you can get it a bit faster, but sensor tower actually costs a little bit too much gas early on. So make sure you actually have your stuff rolling before making the sensor tower. Like here I got my 1-1, or I got my armories before the sensor tower, Pretty sure the sensor tower always goes down before the 1-1. You can skip it, because if you look at my army positioning, like, I have a lot of tanks. This is safe. This is very safe. But it does feel a bit risky to skip it. Like, just having the control and not having to react to everything you see, it helps a lot in keeping the game easy. Like I always tell my students, you don't want to play and learn to have 5,000 APM. You want to make the game as easy as possible for yourself, and the sensor tower really helps. Like if your only line of let's say you want to attack, you want to take your fourth, and these units are here. If your only line of defense is like you spotting a drop the 2 seconds this marine sees it, you can see it's pretty difficult, right? Like you would think why you have vision, but like realistically, if you play games, there's a decent chance you will not see your marine on the minimap looking at those medevacts, right? So stuff like sensor towers really help making the game easier. You can add more later on, like when you take this fourth base, you can add one here, and you know, vision is honestly key. Then another important thing, 4TC goes down before the extra factories, because this build is super safe. Nothing about this build is really greedy. So what that means is that your upgrades are not very developed, I guess, which means you don't have a timing soon. So if you would have added extra factories, you still wouldn't have a strong timing to hit because your upgrades are kind of slow. So you just want to make sure to get your fourth base up anyway before. So we go for fourth base and then for the extra factories. If you play a more greedy build is to make these armories before these factories. And then you actually have the opportunity to hit like a really killer 2-2 timing. Then you could consider getting your factories before, so you can really hit the first timing super hard. But when you're playing safe anyway, like here you can see we're 165 supply. If we made those factories faster, maybe we're at 175. But our 1-1 is still not done anyway, so we don't want to attack anyway, right? And even 1-1 timings are not... Like, it's just a normal timing. It's not a particularly brutal timing or anything like that, so... It's not a goal to aim to have like a low eco for a super brutal 1-1 timing or something like that. And in general, mech armies beat bio armies anyway head on until there's like a lot of ravens on the field. So yeah, don't worry too much about getting those factories super fast. Just focus on the command centers. Build more command centers slowly as well, as you can see. I'm lifting my command center to take my fourth base, sorry, and I'm making my fifth right behind it. Especially because mech has a lot of minerals, you want to keep making CCs as you have the money for it. And one thing important too is, even though you have this massive air army, is to keep adding turrets slowly. Like you don't want to, you know, if you don't have the money for it, don't stop making units just to make turrets. But you do definitely want to make turrets slowly, because one of the weaknesses of mech is that mech production doesn't stop a doom drop. Because you have like... For example, here, let's say all of our add-ons are done. We're going to have 3 tanks popping out, 4 Hellions, and 2 Vikings. If there's 4 medevacts worth of stuff here, and unseized tanks and stuff are going to be popping out of these factories, you're not going to stop that, right? So a big part of playing mech is preventing doom drops. Not like reacting to them, but trying to prevent them. Make sure they don't want to go in there. If you go more and more out with your bases, let's say you take the 4th and the 5th over here, you also want to start adding some turrets here so it doesn't drop on your tanks. You have the turrets here and stuff. So even though you have the air army, make sure to keep adding turrets, because at some point you also want to move out with your air army, and you don't want to leave any big holes in your defense. Like, it's even more important with mech, because with bio, your army is very fast. Like, if my army is right here, I'm playing bio, and Doomdrop is in the main, you stim the army, and it will be there very fast. Getting Doomdrop is always kind of annoying if you're not in spot, but with bio, it's definitely a little bit easier to deal with. So here I'm actually going to use a little trick that you could copy. Another rule with mech, by the way, is that you always want to push pretty late at like a really high supply. And the reason for that is that mech is really strong in big numbers. Like, you don't want to attack with just a few tanks, because then the damage of the tanks is not enough to keep a bio army back. And then the bio army can get in your army and kill everything. So I always want to push at a high supply. My general rule is to make 10 to 12 tanks and then slowly switch to Thors, because you need, for the anti-liberator. That's very important too, getting those Thors. You always want to leave a few tanks at home too. Usually I would leave 2 here, I think. Maybe 1 here, and then you can attack, in this case, with 10 tanks, leaving 3 at home in total. Now here I'm using a small trick that you could copy if you get doom dropped a lot. Is basically, I faked attacking and then went back. Just to see if he would doom drop anywhere, because then I could respond fast and then counterattack. But he scanned me going back, so then I just attacked after. And it seems like it's not a big deal, but you don't want to make it too obvious you're attacking, because then they can really set up those doom drops and stuff. Now here's the defense I was talking about. Here I actually have 3 tanks behind. It's probably because Sol is actually, I know him for doing those counter doom drops. And here you're also going to see the importance of those front turrets I have. So here we're not really hitting a timing. My timing is basically attacking when I'm maxed, which is really powerful. Then the way you attack is usually you kind of brute force with this. And the reason is because, like here he only had 4 tanks. Sometimes they have more, like 6. And even then you would go in, because remember you have 2 Ravens, 4 tanks would be disabled. Hellbats at the front, they would take any damage too. And with the overwhelming tank count, you can usually push through. And if the other Terran doesn't have tanks anymore, they don't really have a chance in stopping your mech army anymore. So here you can see those turrets being super useful, stopping the doom drop on the tanks. Like this stuff like this, it doesn't look big because you look at the supply, but you see he still has a massive army. He has more bases than me. If he would have killed this, that's minus 24 SCVs as well, and this position gone. My eco would not be great. And then all of a sudden, I think I would actually find myself into a losing or maybe even spot. And now with those turrets and the defense, I actually find myself massively ahead. So it's a pretty big difference. Now here you can see why the Thors are so important. It's pretty easy for a bio player to actually overcome you in Viking count, because a bio player is going to be ahead in bases and be able to have more starports and stuff. But the Thors make it pretty hard for Liberators to defend, because you can run around the zones and they're really good anti-air. And those Thors are basically the reason why I'm going to win this fight here, because they will take down the Liberators and all the air. The Vikings will be pretty useless. And then I can just push in like that. And then from this point on, this was kind of a funny skirmish. 1 Marauder survived my tanks. From this point on, I would just play the same. Like I said, keep making command centers, 5, 6. Super important to keep muling and expanding. Keep those upgrades rolling as well. Try to not skip out on 2-2 and 3-3 and stuff, because upgrades on mech are really good. The moment you have 3-3 on your mech, bio is not winning a fight anymore. Like, it won't. 3-3 mech dominates 3-3 bio. And then it's all gonna be about the air. And a big advantage of mech when you transition to air is that mech already has the armor upgrades ahead, because air and ground armor upgrades are combined. So that's an advantage mech has over bio in the late game. Now Sol is a player that turbo transitions to the late game, so he already has double armory upgrades going. And that's one of the reasons why I was able to hit such a killer timing, because he does play it a little bit greedy, right? And then from this point on, like, the thing is, those bio units, making 2 Marauders and 5 Marines, that doesn't really do anything, you know? So once I kind of broke him, he's not really gonna be able to recover from that. Just because my reinforcements, like I'm not even using one of my factories, I think. I could make 3 Thors and 4 Hellions and 2 Vikings at a time. Or let's forget about the starport, right? The Thors attack his starport units. I only have 1 starport, but like, just looking at the barracks versus factory production, 3 Thors or tanks and 4 Hellions are definitely gonna beat 2 Marauders and 5 Marines or whatever he makes, right? Like my, I was gonna say reproduction, but that sounds really wrong. My production after the fight is gonna be so much better than his. Now we're gonna go for that 5th base as well. As you can see, one tip by the way, don't overestimate the Thors against Liberators. If Liberators are in high counts, they actually kind of destroy Thors. But in low amounts, Thors are really good, because you can, like here, he had 1 Lib sieged here and 1 here. And you can just stand in one of the zones. It's pretty easy to micro. And here you can see how good the mech trades as well. Like, this was just a few units. And I killed almost everything he had. Just like 3 tanks and 2 Thors it was or something, you know. And he doesn't have much left. Now, that's actually going to be it for the guide, guys, because the next 3 minutes are going to be me literally sitting AFK and making more tanks and Thors and then ending the game, which is not super interesting. If you want to check out the last 3 minutes of the game, is it 3 minutes? 2.5 minutes, then make sure to check out the replay. But I hope you guys are gonna take some MMR with this on the ladder. Nice, low APM, relaxed build. You know, for the Friday evening, finally done with work and you can relax. Get some ladder points. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And see you guys next time. Adios.